The conference room smelled like burnt coffee, cold air conditioning, and the kind of tension that makes your heartbeat feel louder than human voices. Rain hammered against the giant glass windows, while everyone sat frozen around the polished table, pretending not to notice the storm about to explode inside Atlas Horizon Technologies. Olivia Hart sat perfectly still at the end of the table, her sharp gray blazer untouched by the chaos around her, her expression calm enough to make people nervous. She had spent 6 years building the company's entire cybersecurity infrastructure, while executives took credit for systems they barely understood. Then Brandon Cole walked into the room like he owned the building, the city, and possibly gravity itself. He was 32, overconfident, addicted to buzzwords, and somehow had become vice president after only 3 weeks because his uncle sat on the board of directors. Brandon tossed a folder onto the table and clapped his hands together with fake enthusiasm. "All right, everyone," he announced loudly. "We're restructuring operations, trimming unnecessary expenses, and modernizing our digital environment for scalability." Every employee in the room already knew what that meant. Nobody looked at Olivia directly, but everyone felt the same wave of dread spreading across the conference room like smoke after an explosion. Brandon smiled at Olivia with the kind of grin people use before ruining someone's life. "Unfortunately," he said casually, "your consulting services are no longer required. We're moving your systems under internal management effective immediately." Silence swallowed the room whole. Junior developers stared down at their laptops while project managers avoided eye contact, terrified of becoming the next target in Brandon's corporate bloodbath. Olivia slowly lifted her teacup and took a calm sip without shaking once. "Understood," she replied softly. "Before I leave, has anyone prepared a transition protocol for the encryption architecture and key management systems?" Brandon laughed loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Relax, Olivia," he mocked. "The company owns the servers, the software, and the databases. We own everything. Just pack your stuff and security will escort you out." Olivia stared at him for one long second, almost like a scientist observing a man willingly stepping onto a landmine. "Ownership of hardware," she said quietly, "is not the same thing as ownership of access." Brandon rolled his eyes, clearly too arrogant to understand the warning buried inside her words. He followed her to her office while she packed a tiny cardboard box containing a cactus, a framed photo of her dog, and years of silent sacrifice no one ever appreciated. "No hard feelings," Brandon smirked while checking his expensive watch. "Honestly, we can hire some college graduate to do your job for half the cost." Olivia placed her company badge carefully onto the desk beside her still-running workstation. "Cybersecurity isn't just coding," she answered calmly. "It's trust, mathematics, and controlled access. Remove one piece incorrectly, and the entire structure collapses." Brandon barely listened. He was too busy imagining himself as the genius executive who saved the company millions by eliminating an expensive consultant nobody truly understood. Olivia walked through the lobby, carrying her small box while rain pounded against the glass entrance doors. Mr. Jenkins, the old security guard, looked confused when she handed him her badge. "Leaving already, Miss Hart?" he asked quietly. "Permanent vacation," Olivia replied with a small smile before stepping into the rain. The moment she drove away, Atlas Horizon unknowingly lost the only person who truly understood the engine keeping the company alive. Back at her house, Olivia unlocked a fireproof cabinet hidden inside her office wall and removed a thick contract binder. Buried deep inside page 47 sat the clause nobody bothered reading when they hired her years ago. The document clearly stated that the encryption vault, master authentication systems, and rotating access keys remained the intellectual property of her private company, Blackridge Security Solutions LLC. Atlas Horizon was leasing access, not owning it. Olivia opened her personal laptop, an isolated machine completely separated from every public network. A dark terminal screen glowed against the quiet room as she accessed the private cloud infrastructure controlling Atlas Horizon's entire encryption ecosystem. Thousands of requests flashed across the terminal every second. Employee logins, financial records, customer databases, payroll systems, confidential emails, all of it depended on Olivia's vault approving each digital handshake. Brandon thought he fired an employee, but he had actually terminated the vendor controlling the company's digital oxygen supply. And worse, he did it without requesting a transition period. Olivia checked the automated renewal schedule she created years earlier after surviving endless executive incompetence. Every Friday at exactly 5 o'clock, the security token required manual renewal to maintain uninterrupted encryption access. She could have renewed it. She could have called Brandon, explained the danger, and professionally transferred control over several months. But then she remembered his laugh, his arrogance, and the humiliation of being fired publicly like disposable trash. Olivia slowly typed a new system message into the terminal. Access suspended. Outstanding emergency consulting fee required for restoration. She paused for a second before adding the amount. $5 million. Friday evening arrived quietly. Inside Atlas Horizon, employees wrapped up reports, joked about weekend plans, and counted the final minutes before freedom. Nobody noticed the digital countdown ticking toward disaster. At exactly 5 p.m., the requests flooding Olivia's terminal suddenly turned red. Authentication failures exploded across the screen like machine gun fire. Thousands of systems simultaneously lost access to the encryption vault. Inside the office, monitors froze mid-operation. Emails stopped sending. Databases failed to load. The massive performance dashboard in the center bullpen flickered violently before displaying one terrifying message in giant black letters. System access suspended. Consulting fee outstanding. Contact Blackridge Security Solutions. Every employee stared at the screen while panic spread faster than wildfire through the building. Olivia's phone immediately began vibrating non-stop across her coffee table. First came the IT department, then department heads, then Brandon himself calling repeatedly like a man watching his career collapse in real time. She ignored every call while calmly pouring another cup of tea. Outside, rain tapped peacefully against her windows, while Atlas Horizon descended into total operational paralysis. Throughout the weekend, the company desperately attempted to bypass the lockout. Engineers rebooted servers, restored backups, and even attempted direct database overrides. But every system remained trapped behind encryption walls they could neither break nor understand. Monday morning finally brought legal threats. A courier delivered an aggressive cease and desist letter accusing Olivia of sabotage, cyber extortion, and intentional corporate destruction. She laughed halfway through reading it. Olivia immediately emailed the board of directors, attaching the original contract along with highlighted sections proving she legally owned the key infrastructure. She explained that this was not hacking or ransomware. It was contract enforcement. 10 minutes later, the chairman of the board personally called her, sounding exhausted and terrified. Atlas Horizon's stock price had already begun crashing while furious clients demanded explanations for inaccessible systems and frozen accounts. Please, the chairman begged carefully. There has to be another solution besides $5 million. Olivia leaned back in her chair and stared out toward her peaceful garden before answering. There was, she replied calmly. It was called respecting expertise. By Tuesday, chaos inside the company turned brutal. Executives blamed each other, legal teams tore through archived emails, and employees quietly leaked internal drama to Olivia through private messages. Brandon had become the center of the disaster. Investigators eventually uncovered an old email proving Olivia previously proposed a safe migration plan months earlier. Brandon personally canceled the project to reduce expenses and redirected the budget toward cosmetic office renovations. That single email destroyed him. He had ignored the risk, canceled the solution, then fired the only person capable of preventing catastrophe. The board realized their expensive executive wasn't a visionary leader. He was a walking liability. During an emergency Zoom meeting, exhausted board members begged Olivia to return with a higher salary, executive benefits, and total authority over cybersecurity operations. Brandon sat silently on camera, looking like he hadn't slept for days. Olivia refused without hesitation. You didn't fail because of technology, she told them coldly. You failed because your company rewards arrogance while treating competence like an inconvenience. Hours later, the board surrendered completely. $5 million was wired directly into Blackridge Security Solutions, in exchange for permanent ownership transfer of the encryption architecture and restoration of access. Olivia entered the master override commands, while green approval messages finally replaced the endless waterfall of red failures. Across Atlas Horizon, systems slowly returned online and exhausted employees nearly collapsed from relief. She delivered every credential, encryption schematic, and administrative file before permanently deleting her own access from the network. Then she closed her laptop and sat silently in the peaceful stillness of her home. The war was over. 2 days later, Olivia drove past Atlas Horizon and spotted Brandon standing outside the building carrying a cardboard box, staring hopelessly at his phone while waiting for a ride. She didn't stop. She simply drove away knowing competence always outlives arrogance. Real power never needs to scream, because true expertise speaks for itself when everything else falls apart. Please subscribe and share our channel. We make powerful stories for you filled with revenge, justice, and unforgettable endings.